We're going to start by removing the exhaust manifold, and then go with the set of headers. Obviously, the O2 sensors, we're going to try to yank those out. I bought some spark plugs, thermostat, and a valve cover gasket. I'm going to get those all changed out. I'm going to remove the spark plugs, check the condition of those first before we do anything else. That sensor down there was rusted, so I got to steal that off the other engine. But first off, if you want to get access to the plugs on your Jeep 4-liter engine, you got to remove these bolts right here. And it removes the DIS bar, I believe it's called. And the spark plug bar, you remove that and you get access to your plugs, and then we're going to start checking those out. So once you remove the 4 bolts, like I said, this piece just pulls off, just like that, and then you get access to all your plugs. First thing I'm doing is just going around cracking all the plugs, not taking them out yet, but just going around cracking them. At this point, once I got the plugs all cracked, it loosens up the dirt, so I like to just take an air gun and just blow out the holes before removing the plugs. Blowing out the holes before removing the plugs will help you prevent getting any kind of dirt and shit in the cylinder walls, so we're just going to go ahead and do all that. There, now we're going to go for the plug inspection now. Here are the new Champion plugs here. We're not going to stick them in yet today. We're going to get the engine all dressed up first before we go with that. I'm going to show you the new plugs. Then we're going to have a look at the old ones. Here's the old plugs here. They've obviously, doesn't look like they've been changed in a while. They probably need a real good cleaning, but I mean, there's nothing very obvious about it that says that something is seriously wrong in the engine inside, but that doesn't mean there's not a bad bearing or something. But we're just going to put these plugs back in. Here are the O2 sensors from the exhaust manifold there. They actually came out a lot easier than I thought, so I'm hoping the exhaust manifold is going to come out a lot easier. Because usually, sometimes in my experiences, if it's been on the engine a long time, sometimes you go to take the bolts out and they end up just snapping off, so wish me luck. So I just want to show you guys this before I take it off. If you want to take off the exhaust manifolds, unfortunately the intake has to come off as well. So when you're removing the last bolt, the exhaust won't fall, but the intake will. So make sure when you're removing the last bolt, like I said, hold on to this piece, make sure the intake doesn't drop when you move it, and then the exhaust is held on by 2 bolts at the back. They just slide over so they're not going to drop to the ground. But once I remove this, I'll show you what's all behind it. The intake and exhaust share common gasket here, which is interesting. I've never had worked on a Jeep engine before, so I'm not sure what to expect really. But at this point here, you can see all of your valves inside. There's your intake, there's your exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, and so forth all down the line. If you're ever looking at changing the thermostat on your Jeep, obviously it's going to be different when it's in the Jeep, but on the motor outside, all you got is 1 bolt here, 1 bolt here. Remove it, the thermostat housing comes off. Otherwise you'd have to drain your coolant, remove these hoses, the electrical connection, and then pull it off. You remove it, the housing, thermostat's right there, the gasket's stuck on it, so I'm going to have to get something to kind of pry it out, clean it off, and then stick the new gasket and thermostat in. New thermostat just goes in the hole, just like that. We're going to get the housing ready and then put that bitch in and we're done with it. This gasket here was actually half sticker, so you just stick it on a thermostat housing and put that in like that and put the housing in. But I gotta do pretty much how the Jeep engine looks with almost nothing on it. It's pretty darn small, narrow, long. Suppose you're wondering why I got an engine stand and the crane on there, because this engine stand's a piece of shit. If I put any kind of weight on it, tilt it, fuck, the thing will fall right over. So use the engine hoist as support. Now the key, I can understand why they put a sticker on the back of the thermostat gasket, because It is a little bit tricky putting the thermostat in, because if you don't have it in correctly, it's not going to seat and you're not going to get your housing back on. So making one side a sticky side is a definite plus, made it a little bit easier. So here we are back to the Jeep engine. It's been a week since I've been in the garage and started working on it. So today I wanted to get the engine block cleaned up and painted and the valve cover gasket changed. When removing the valve cover gasket, don't remove these bolts here, these long studs, those are for the head. You want to remove the opposite ones, these small ones over here. So I'm going to remove those right now, and then we're going to inspect the rockers and everything else underneath it. And while we have it off, we're going to clean the cover, and then we're going to go about cleaning the block and painting that up for today. And then we're going to go and start working on the motorcycle later on, but that'll be a totally separate video from what I am doing now, keeping the bike and the Jeep video separate. So let's get to work. So right now all the bolts are out of the valve cover, and usually most valve covers, when you go to remove them, always seem to stick a little bit. I just gave this one a little tap and it's going to come right off. So here's the shot of the Jeep 4-liter engine with the valve cover off. The gasket you can clearly see is right down here, and we're going to pull that off now. We can just I basically quickly went over the rockers, and just to see if there's any damage to any of them. See if any of them were loose or anything. Something that might lead to me that there might be some other internal issues with the engine, but so far everything looks good. So now I'm going to start cleaning everything up and then get ready to reinstall the valve cover gasket and then the valve cover itself. The valve cover is semi-cleaned up, and the new valve cover gasket kit comes with brand new grommets. I'll just take one out here. And basically just like a rubber grommet that just goes in the hole, and then you take your metal piece once it's pushed through, and then I'll try to do it, yeah, push it through like that. So then you're ready to bolt it all down. It's easier to put the grommets in first and then go about putting the metal pieces in, otherwise, because I'll show you, there's clips underneath, can you see? And if you put your metal piece through first and try to push the grommet in, it's not going to go that well, and you're probably not going to get a very good seal. So just go about doing it whichever way you want, just the way I'm going to do it, and we're going to put this back on, clean up the engine, and paint it. So right now the valve cover gasket's set in place, ready for the valve cover to be bolted down. If you're wondering, is it possible to screw it up? It is almost virtually impossible to screw up putting the valve cover gasket in, unless you're a freaking retard. Right here, there's a bolt, there's a guide pin, you might as well just call it. That's where the valve cover gasket goes. The other side doesn't have a pin, it only has it right there. Same with on this side. If you flip it upside down, it's not going to fit. This is the only possible way it can go on, unless you flipped it around, but the valve cover gasket is going to be the same on both sides. It's impossible. So this is the way it goes. Don't double question it. Don't start drilling holes trying to make it fit. Now we're ready to put the valve cover on, get this piece out of the way, get the engine painted, and that'll be it until I get some parts for the Jeep and get ready to pull the engine. So right now I've got the engine painted. At this point in the game, I gapped all the spark plugs. The easiest way to do it is I used to use one of these spark plug gappers, and the gap I needed was 0.035, so that's the gap we all went with. I went with these Champion plugs. I prefer to use plugs that are closest to stock. They seem to work the best. Right now here's the engine basically painted up. I didn't paint the intake and exhaust side here, just because when I reseal it with the gasket, I don't want paint because I wanted a good seal, so I'm actually going to be lightly sanding this section down. But that's what the engine looks like. I'm waiting for some chrome headers and that to come in. I decided to go with the headers. Everything's stripped down. Easter long weekend, I may bring the Jeep inside just to get the engine pulled out, but right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the old spark plugs out. We're going to put the new ones in and put the DIS bar or whatever it is called back in, and then that's all we're going to do with the project for now. This pretty much concludes everything in the video I want to do today. Like I said before, I got to wait on a few more things before we get going on this project. I'm hoping to have the engine in within another month or so, within the month of May. Got so much shit on the go. Gotta do the clutch of my motorcycle, get the boat ready for spring, get the Sea-Doo ready for spring, get the other engine in the Sea-Doo. Still gotta work on this 57 Chevy Bel Air. It's been an ongoing project. It's gonna be a very busy summer making videos. It's time to get to work. But anyways, thanks for watching. Stay tuned and subscribe for some more videos coming up in the future.